Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode number 21 of the Dota Show. And today I actually have educational content for you guys that I prepared that I'm confident will be useful to everybody. Or if not useful, then certainly entertaining. So, I'm feeling good about the show today. Hope you guys are too. Today we're going to be talking about playing support Earthshaker in the lane. But before we actually get into that, I don't know why I'm doing this. Okay, so I have my microphone, right? That's attached just to my headset. For some reason, I was looking at it instead of. Oh, hopefully not a sign of things to come. Alright, I'm losing it, guys. I'll try and keep it together for just a little bit longer. Alright, so anyway. A couple of stories, things that have been happening to me recently. So I was at the gym, right? I'm really trying to get back in shape, get my stamina up and feel better about myself. Apparently it's killing me. For some reason, alright, so normally I go early in the morning, actually before I've been casting for God in the Summer. That's been my routine the past couple weeks. And I gotta say, it's so nice. It's nobody's there, whatever equipment you need to use, it's fine. Everybody's friendly, it's not crowded. It's perfect, man. But today, I slept in, we didn't cast until later. I didn't actually get to the gym until 5 p.m., and that's just the absolute worst time to go to the gym. Oh my god, everybody is there, right? But for some reason, all they want to do, at least all the guys want to do, is use the bench press. Like you have your squat rack, you have, all your different machines, your treadmills, all the different equipment of the gym. Well, there's some people using them a decent amount, but god damn, for some reason everybody wants to use the bench press. And today, unfortunately, I had bench press in my routine. It's like, is this really the only muscle in the human body? Like, do you need your chest to be that strong? Like, I see these guys that, freaking massive upper torsos and chicken legs, but go figure. Alright, so the other thing that happened to me, and this was a bit of a personal crisis actually. My kitchen right now, actually I just emailed myself the picture. Let me see if I have it. My kitchen has been a mess the past couple of days, to say the least. And perfect, I do indeed have it. So I'm going to show you guys what my kitchen looks like right now. It's a little bit messy. Don't hate on me. Alright, so this is my kitchen right now. I promise we're not slob. This is like not doing the dishes for a couple of days. There's no insects, there's no rodents. It's just we need to do the dishes. So anyway, you see with the kitchen. That's the current state of the kitchen. Well, it's been that way. What happens is we won't do the dishes for like 2 or 3 days, and then it'll pile up, it'll build up, and then we do everything. It's all clean, and then for some reason, rather than just put the dishes in the dishwasher as it comes, we get lazy, we let it build up, then we have to do it all over again 2 days later. So you can see this is basically a minefield, trying to get to the sink, trying to get to the knives, whatever you need. Recipe for disaster. So I'm making myself dinner pretty late. I think I actually was just putting something in the microwave to heat it up. And I go to get it out, and I put it down on the stove, and then I go to grab my glass, and I accidentally smash the glass off of the counter onto the floor. And of course, even though it lands on a carpet, which we have right below that sink area, it still breaks. So now there's glass fiber just all over the carpet. I spent like 2 hours trying to clean it up, right? I think it's good. Then for some reason I have the brilliant idea to walk around with, rather than actually get down at eye level and make sure there's no glass, just walk around barefoot in the kitchen because, I'm not going to slice my feet off with glass. That would never happen. So you can probably guess what happens next. Within a minute or two, I managed to slice my foot up real bad, step on a piece of glass, and then it was hurting real bad. So I'm a hypochondriac, or I've become one recently. I never used to give two hoots about anything in the past, but I'm always reading too much in my medical symptoms nowadays. Oh, so my foot was hurting, right? And I'm pushing on the foot where the glass had, gone into it and cut it open a little bit. I'm like, oh man, that really hurts. I think I have a piece of glass stuck under my skin. So start talking to some people online. Internet, best place to get your medical advice, of course. And they say, oh, just cut your foot open and, remove the glass. Because I was pretty convinced I had like a small shard under my skin. And the wound had sort of closed up around it. It was a really small cut. So it's like, oh my god, that sounds horrifying. What am I going to do? Just take a knife and start slicing and dicing? Finally, I'm like, I better ask my roommate, because he's an Eagle Scout, and he's not an idiot in all matters practical like me. He's like, alright, well, all you really have to do is take a razor blade and just sort of shave the skin off. You don't, slice vertically or perpendicularly down into the skin. Just sort of gently shave the skin off. So I start doing that, and then I'm like, oh, the pain is gone. I can't find the glass. Who must have moved? No, I actually never had glass in my foot. I'm just an idiot. I better never get seriously injured or sick, because I was freaking out. I was I don't have insurance, but I was like, oh, should I go to the hospital? Do I need to see a doctor? You know, what if this permanently damages my foot? Like, I've just started working out again. I don't want to stop. I better never get injured or get sick. Alright, so that's my fun positive. Why are all my stories so negative? I don't know, but everything is just like something bad or wrong with my life or the world. I'll try and find a happy one for you guys for next week. But for today, we're going to move ahead into our actual educational segment, that being laning with Earthshaker. And this is not meant to be comprehensive. It's not a hero guide, but we're going to touch on a few key points. So we jump ourselves into the game. I put on my headset. Let me just make sure my microphone wasn't muted that whole time. Okay, good. That's something I've done before. Yep. Alright, so we have two games we're going to take a look at. The first one is featuring Pyrian Flex. If you haven't already checked this guy out, youtube.com/Ted himself. He makes the most hilarious guides about heroes, about Dota 2 you've ever seen. If you haven't seen them, frankly, I'm ashamed that you're watching my stream, but really, he's very entertaining. He's also very bad, self-professed, admitted to be very bad. So, I was like, Pyrian, do you mind if I use some of your games and just sort of use them as an example of what not to do and mistakes and that sort of thing? It's like, no, man, go for it. I'm going to learn a lot. So he's been a fantastic chap about it all. And I also may have a series coming up with him where we're basically going to play games together and then I'm going to make fun of him. And he's going to try to explain what was going on in his head when he did really dumb things. So if you guys would be interested in that, let me know. Leave me a comment. But for now, Pyrian Flex will be first. And this is sort of what not to do, for the most part, making mistakes as Earthshaker. And then we're going to look at the same hero played by someone who's a little bit more experienced, that being the one and only Luminous of Dota commentaries. And while he's not a pro, he has a damn good Earthshaker game. I have to say, I was very impressed. And I'm normally pretty hard to please. So, without any further ado, let's jump into the game. And while we're doing this, let's talk a little bit about Earthshaker. He's a very immobile support.
Prepare for battle.
He lacks the traditional harassment and lane control capabilities of other heroes like Crystal Maiden, Lich. He doesn't have any nukes that are spammable. But what he does have is one spell which is incredibly powerful, and that's Fissure. This spell can divide your opponents up, it can save allies and block off a retreat path, it can also cut opponents off from retreating, so it's one of the, I would argue one of the top 5 strongest non-ultimate spells in the game, if you ignore things like cooldown and stuff like that. But very, very powerful spell, but a spell that has to be used properly. A poorly placed Fissure can be even more devastating than just not fissuring at all. I'm sure you've all been on the receiving end of that before if you've played a decent amount of Dota 2. Your ally blocks you with the Fissure trap. You don't actually end up escaping where you otherwise would have been able to. Couple of things I want to point out. Pyrian's been alive for a long time now. We've seen him moving his mouse cursor around. Now you're seeing me move my cursor around as well. He's shopping. Only 30 seconds to go before the rune spawns. The first point I want to make about playing any hero. Shop quickly and shop correctly. So the shop quickly part, we can already see he's not doing that. He takes too long to shop. He's not even going to get to the rune or the lane before the creeps spawn. And this is a downside to what we see a lot of times in pubs, which is players trying to counterpick. If you wait too long, you might pick the perfect hero to counter their team, but get to the lane late, your allies already died, given up first blood, and suddenly it doesn't matter you have that perfect counter, you're on the back foot. Also, the second point is shop correctly. And already I want to point out, we see Pyrian here buying a clarity, only a single clarity. Now, I was just talking about how mana-dependent Earthshaker is. Let's do the math real quick. 125 mana for a single Fissure at level 1, and a 247 mana pool. He doesn't even have enough mana to use the spell twice in a row if you ignore built-in mana regen. If he uses 2, he's done for the lane. At 1 clarity, that means probably 1 more Fissure. So right now, Pyrian's looking at 3 Fissures before he actually has to go back to base, dies, or gets a first blood and can send himself some more. Instead of this item build, get the wards, that's great. But then get maybe 1 set of tangos or healing salve and multiple clarity potions. So shop correctly. In this case, he's not doing it. And the reason for this is Earthshaker shouldn't really be taking too much damage anyway. And we're going to see this is a hero that generally wants to be positioned far back. And if he's positioned forward, it should be because his lane is such an advantage that the enemy's going to be running away, not fighting you. So he has 2 wards, and we're going to see him place 1. And he's going to put it here, and as we'll soon find out, this is Pyrian's favorite ward spot in the universe. He loves this spot. He will never place a ward anywhere else. Even if he's trying to ward the top rune, he's still going to place a ward here. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but Pyrian really, really likes this spot. And it's a nice spot for seeing the rune. It's a safe ward to place. But it's not a ward that's going to give you much in the actual lane. It'll spot that rune out. But there's a lot of better wards that we can place. So if you're in this bottom lane, probably the most common one to place is this ward right here. You can't see me drawing the circle because it's paused, but right in this area, you can see this rune. But more importantly, you can see all this area over here if your opponents are trying to backstab you. There's a reason they call it the suicide lane. It's because they can wrap around from behind and start doing nasty things to you from the rear. That sounded incredibly inappropriate. Oh man, I'm not off to a good start in terms of avoiding those references. So that's one ward you could place. If you just want to place a ward that spots your opponents moving around, you could place a ward right over here, over here. So there's a lot of options just to see them moving around. If you want to spot the pull action, a great ward that not a lot of people know about is over here. I'm just giving you a couple of examples where you can see your opponent's movement and still block the pull. That's another thing he hasn't done. He has not blocked the pull. And in the off lane, this can be a real problem because if your opponents want to, they can just keep on pulling the creeps, denying you a lot of experience. And this lane is pretty strong, the Earthshaker, but it's not really a lane that can punish that fully. Okay, so the ward placement, not the best. Not really that useful for a situation. And we're going to see how this ends up affecting him in just a few moments. So you can already see the backstab is coming in. Vengeful Spirit circling around, as well as that. This is Ezolor, or what, is that his name in Dota 2? Keeper of the Light, sorry, Keeper of the Light. And you can see Pyrion, I like this positioning. He's back behind the Leshrac. This is where he should be. But now you're going to see him, for some reason, he runs forward. Then he starts to run away. And now, inexplicably, he drops a fissure on 2 heroes. Now, normally this would be okay. But we're going to see this ends up really hurting him in the lane. They're not actually in any danger. Sure, they might hit a magic missile, but Pyrion could easily just walk back to the tower. Same with the Leshrac. And it's not like Keeper of the Light can disable you. The other thing I want to point out about this ward, and it's something I didn't really mention, is as soon as you arrive at your lane, in any situation, but especially in the suicide lane, you want to do a head count off the bat. So if we actually just go back like a split second here, we're looking at Dire Vision right now. There are 2 heroes missing. They don't yet have vision of this Venge. They don't yet have vision of the Keeper of the Light. They just saw Darkseer top. They saw Gyrocopter mid. Good players are always be watching the minimap, but especially when your lane first starts, you want to figure out where your opponents are. Basically, you're doing a head count. Okay, and it's not just a head count in general, but specifically which heroes are missing. So in this case, let's say this is a Phantom Assassin and a Faceless Void. Well, they're missing, but really, what are they going to do at level 1? They're not going to kill you, so it's not a big deal. But a hero like Vengeful Spirit, this is a hero that can cause a lot of problems for you off the bat. They actually did see Keeper of the Light use Illuminate a second before this, but the head count should have happened even earlier. We're already 38 seconds into the game. That first wave is already starting to attack each other. So the head count should have happened earlier, but only now if you realize there's multiple heroes here. Okay, so we move ahead in the replay. Now we're going to see Pyrion drops a fissure. As soon as he sees these 2 heroes, you know it's a 3-on-2. And this is something we're going to see that Pyrion really struggles with in this lane, is identifying when you actually have an advantage, or if you're going to have one at all. It's not always easy to tell, right? Because sometimes you can be a solo hero and be up against, let's say you're up against 3 melee agility carries like Faceless Void, PA, and PL, and you're a Windrunner. You'll actually be fine against that tri-lane. You could probably get some kills, at least dominate the lane. But generally speaking, if you're outnumbered, you're going to have the disadvantage. A couple of other really obvious ways that you're likely to be at a disadvantage. If they have more ranged heroes than you, if you have 1 or more low-impact early-game heroes in your lane, heroes like PA, PL, Spirit Breaker, or if they have multiple high-impact heroes. So heroes like CM, Leshrac, ES. When I say high-impact, I mean heroes that can do a lot with very few levels. These heroes, generally this is going to be your intelligence snookers. Although we'll see, there's some exceptions. Earthshaker would be a great example of a high-impact laning hero. So, the point I want to make right now is Pyrion is not being patient with his fissure usage. He drops it immediately as soon as he sees these 2 heroes, but really, did he need the fissure there? He didn't. We're going to see this ends up really costing them in about a second. So, we unpause, and Pudge just starts rotting away, chasing Pork Chop here, chasing Pork Chop, and the Illuminate picks him off. Now, if Pyrion had held onto his fissure and just walked back, especially if he'd already been positioned back here, he could have just made a fissure block across here as soon as Leshrac walks back. Leshrac would have been absolutely fine. The other option would have been to wait even longer, try to bait them into the tower, and then fissure block, or just fissure stun them under the tower. And then your Leshrac is going to live. They're going to be tanking the tower, and look at the armor on these heroes. 1 on Pudge, 4 on Venge, but she's got low HP. Between the 2 of them, they're going to drop very fast to that tower. So the lack of patience here really costing Pyrion. It gives up a first blood in this lane, and unfortunately, this is only the start of Pyrion's problems. First blood. So don't fissure unless it's absolutely necessary, or it's going to be something good. Okay, so we don't really go very far before we see Pyrion make his next move. He's 1v3 right now, and he knows it, right? He has to know there are 3 heroes here. He just saw them. He's going to charge into Pudge. Pudge, oh, low HP. I can kill this guy, right? Remember, you're 1v3, Pyrion. This is probably not the best place to go. And right now, I'm just like, oh, Pyrion, please, please, don't do it. You want to choose your spots wisely. And Pyrion right here is just blindly charging in because he sees a low HP hero. Try and use your brain in these situations. It's 1-on-3. Bench has a stun available. Pudge has a hook. Illuminate is not available, but just 3 heroes right-clicking in this case can bring you down quite quickly. So, he charges in. He charges in. He drops the fissure. And it was also not the best fissure, but then he continues to charge in, tanking the entire creep wave. 6 creeps attacking him. You can see every single creep is focusing him. 2 ranged heroes hitting him. And he's going to go down. So not choose your spots wisely. This is the opposite of what you want to be doing as Earthshaker. You want to be very patient. You want to use your fissures wisely. Or very selectively and only when you need them. And you want to make sure that you're choosing your spots intelligently, not forcing the issue. So, at this point, it's safe to say that Pyrion is in a very poor laning situation. They've already given up 2 kills. More importantly, he's up against the tri-lane, and that's never a fun place to be in. And he's in the suicide lane to boot. So, in this situation, how do you want to play? You want to play... There's a word I'm looking for. It starts with a D, and I'm going to actually look at the chat just to see if you guys have it in mind. Starts with a D, guys. Ends with IV. Detrimental. Yeah, defensively. There you go. Thank you, Sean Wilkes Booth, as well as Palm Tree Fun. You want to play defensively when you're in a 3-on-2 situation in the off lane, and you've given up 2 kills in the space of 2 minutes. We're going to see Pyrion doesn't really do this. And, well, I admire the balls in the man, but maybe not the smartest play. So because you want to be defensive, you want to position yourself far back. That's what it means to be playing defensively. The opposite of playing defensively is being aggressive, which would mean position yourself far up past the creep wave, attacking enemy heroes, maybe trying to go for a fissure block behind the pudge, something like that. Right now, this is perfect. Where he is right now, that's where Pyrion should be. I would even like to see him maybe walk over towards the tree line so he can spot if these enemy heroes are here. Really, he should have a ward up. At the very least, block the poke ant. And you can see right now the double stack has already happened. Keeper of the Light's going to be pulling. Venge is about to pick up an invis rune. So they're doing a lot of stuff. He's going to spot this. Or I don't know if he does, but he's got a ward. But having the vision here would be great. So if you're not going to put a ward down, then at the very least use your body to check. If you just sort of position yourself right around the corner, if they come in at you, you can just walk away. Straight back into the lane. And if they don't come at you, then you're in position still to help that Leshrac. But behind him is fine. This is still defensive. That's what he wants. And again, if you're wondering, we are watching his cam review, his perspective right now. Player perspective period. So we're going to see... I want to point out... sorry, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so he charges in, right? There's 2 heroes missing. Venge just picked up an invis rune. He didn't see it, but they had a ward watching it. This is why you buy the wards, guys. So you can see when they pick up the rune. You don't always have to watch the wards, although that's great if you do, but especially when the rune spawns. That's where you want to check, see if there's an invis there, or haste or something like that. Pyrion not being defensive. He charges in. As far as he knows, this is 1v3. He hasn't... Let's assume he didn't see the vents there. There's 3 heroes missing, or 2 heroes missing and a pudge in the lane. So you have to expect they're all going to be in your lane. Basically, you want to be paranoid here. And, well, we're going to see he pays with his life. Slow motion just to let it all sink in a little bit for good old Pyrion. Pyrion, I hope you're watching. That's 1 kill. And now we're going to see Pork Chop on the back foot. Probably going to go down here as well. Yep, 1 more hook. Pork Chop dies. And all of a sudden, this lane is an absolute train wreck. 4 kills in 2.5 minutes. And I want to say if Pyrion was just being defensive, if he was patient with his fissures, nobody would have died. And if he was watching the minimap, nobody would have died once this game in that lane. I know it's asking a lot. Pyrion is a very new player, but this is how you improve, guys. So I like this. I like what he's doing right now. It's the first time he's checking the other lanes of the map. And that's something that new players generally lack in. They don't watch the minimap. They also don't check the other lanes. It's especially important if you're a ganker or support who can be active on the map. But you want to see how your other lanes are doing, see if there's opportunities for you to get involved. Now, right here, I want you guys to see what just happened. Pudge just walked into the secret shop. Leshrac is charging in. Pyrion saw him do this. They had vision. We'll actually just go back a second or so here. And we'll see that they had vision on the map. I'm going to move off player perspective. And we're going to unpause. They saw this Pudge. They saw this Pudge. They saw this. This is dire vision. They saw him walk into the side shop. Now, they've been losing their lane. The score right now is 4-0. But you just saw the 2 supports run into the jungle. They're probably going to pull or gank mid. You just see the Pudge go into the shop as well. And he's at half health. This is one of those few times where you want to be aggressive. Be on the lookout for opportunities. Even if you're losing your lane, don't assume you'll never get a kill again. You just want to be smart about it. So here, this is a perfect opportunity. Pudge runs into the side shop. They should be going to kill him. And we're going to see, unfortunately, Period a little bit slow to do this. He comes in, he's going to drop a fissure, and they're going to get the kill. So he's a little bit late. You saw him, I don't know if you guys noticed, but he was standing here for about 2 seconds before reacting. Maybe drinking his beer. I know he takes his Dota pretty chill. You know, Period is not an intense player by any means. But they do get the kill anyway. That's what I want to credit him for. He sees the opportunity, drops the fissure. They get a much needed kill, and suddenly they're kind of back in this lane. Leshrack's already level 4 from that kill, tied up with the Pudge, so that's an important kill.
Bottom tower is under attack.
Alright, so the next thing we're actually going to notice in this game is that Period has some issues with his camera positioning. And this is something a lot of new players struggle with. You're going to see, generally new players, they won't have their camera in the right spot. They'll be a great example would be what we saw right here, which is actually selecting the courier and looking at it. You don't need to look at the courier to use it. You can just press the courier hotkey, keep the camera on your hero, keep the camera on the lane you want to gank, whatever you're doing, and then micro the hero without doing it. Now, I'm guilty of this too. This is, you know, it's not a big deal, but this is just an example. You want to make sure your camera's always in the right spot. It makes it easier to react quickly. And if you have slow reactions like Period, he's an old man, he's a father, well, it's going to help you out in that regard too. So, watch his positioning. He sees 2 heroes mid, he sees 2 bottom, and I guess Pudge has a bug because he's constantly rotting even though he's really not, so sorry about that. I think that's what happens when you rewind. But he's not actually rotting constantly, but he sees 2 mid, so now they're in a 2-on-2, and this is an Earthshaker Leshrack against the Keeper of the Light Pudge. They can actually get kills in this lane. This is a lane that they can definitely get kills in. So, just watch the... Actually, you know what? It's a little bit farther forward. Oh, sorry. We're about 20 seconds early, so we're going to fast forward real quick. He actually runs into Pudge. Oh, Period. Runs into Pudge, starts tanking the rot. The creeps were blocking him, fortunately. That was bad. That's a bad Period. Right now, he's still in the front lines. There's no creeps. Period. What are you doing? Period. No, don't do it, man. Alright, he's going to back up. Narrowly dodging the hook by pure luck. And for some reason, he sees this Clarity on the ground. He picked up his recipe, kills the Clarity, tanks the nuke, which I believe he even had vision of that being channeled. Just let it go in that case. If you drop the Clarity by accident, dying is not worth killing a 50 gold item, which your opponents may or may not even use. So anyway, he lives. Now, what you want to keep your eye on, in about 3 seconds, Period is going to die. Where's the Pudge? You see him on the minimap. You don't see him on Period's screen. MC is right here. Look, can we see the range of hook? Can we see the range of hook? Yep. Okay, Pudge. So that's Pudge's vision. He's right in the hook range. Here's Period. He's under his tower, so he definitely sees this coming. Although, for some reason... Yep, okay, so his camera moves back. He doesn't actually see the Pudge, even though he's on the minimap. The camera sees a bunch of space beyond the tower. Completely useless to see that, and what happens? He's gonna get hooked. So camera positioning is very important in the laning stage. Especially against a hero like Pudge, where if he hits you with a skill shot, you're probably dead. Or even Mirana would be another example with her arrow. Have your camera position something more like this. Like he could have had his hero at the very back. You want to see as much in front of you as you can. The only exception would be is if you know you're getting ganked from behind, you see heroes over here. That's a little bit different, but generally, a good rule of thumb in the laning phase is make sure you have as much space in front of you where the enemy is likely to come from visible as possible. So Period only saw about this much. You want to see more like this. Unfortunately, he doesn't, so he's going to take a fall here. And Period, in the space of 4.5 minutes, racking up 3 deaths already. It's a little bit unfortunate. I feel for Period here, I really do. It is not fun lane against Pudge as a newer player. It's also not fun to go to the suicide lane against the tri lane. We've all been here before, whether we're good or bad. We've all made these mistakes, so don't flame him. He admits that he's bad, he wants to get better. And he was very gracious to let me use his replay. But these are a lot of mistakes that could be avoided. So I want to point out, we talked about the items earlier. Look at Earthshaker's Tango count. Now, he still has 4, right? He's never going to use these. By the time he does, he could have spent that gold on a pair of wards, a smoke, an observer ward. This bottom lane is just not working out for him, but for some reason, he keeps on coming to it. This is something a lot of players get this kind of tunnel, especially new players, get this tunnel vision mindset that, oh, once I have my lane, that's my lane. I have to stay there until the laning phase is over. And Period even made some jokes about this in one of his YouTube videos. It's really not that rigid, and you'll see in pro games the laning state is so fluid. You'll have tri-lanes, you'll have dual lanes, you'll have roaming supports, you'll have junglers in the offensive jungle, in the defensive jungle. People will be all over the place, constantly moving on the map. And it's not that you have to do that. But if a lane is not going well for you, don't be afraid to move out of that lane. Don't be afraid to actually try something different. Don't feel like you have to be here. Because at this point, pretty much all Period is doing is feeding. He's 0-3, has 1 assist, but really he didn't do a whole lot to secure that kill. That was pretty much all his Shrek. And he's got 1 creep. He's not getting farm, he's not getting levels, he's not helping his teammate do the same. This is a situation where maybe he could go mid instead. Looked to get Gyrocopter, and we saw him check that lane earlier. Gyrocopter is a pretty gankable hero. No blink on him, no escape mechanism. Even a decent fissure, coupled up with Ogre Magi's nuke, should be enough to bring him down, but he's going to stay bottom, which is okay. But I just want to point out you shouldn't be afraid to leave your lane. Okay, so the final 2 points I want to make here. Spend your gold wisely. I was talking about the tangos first, but now we see Pyrion buys a completed Magic Wand. We also saw he dropped a Clarity of his own, then killed it. We saw at one point he bought a pair of Observer Wards, then he only places 1 at the rune. He's not really using his items to their fullest capability. He's not buying the correct items, and most importantly, he's not getting boots. Against Pudge, boots are the most important item to get as quickly as you can, because if you have boots and he doesn't, you can just walk away most of the time, especially with a fissure first. And on top of that, it's just a good item to have in general. That mobility lets you get in position to save your teammates, lets you walk away from ganks, lets you get into position for better fissure. On every hero, they're great, but especially against heroes like Pudge that rely on chasing you to kill you with rot, then it becomes extra important to have those boots. So he's not spending his gold wisely. And again, I'm not picking on him. These are just a couple of common mistakes you'll see in all players, but especially in players who playing someone like Earthshaker. So he's on this bottom lane, right? And we're actually going to see Pudge disappears off the map. Look at Period. He sees Pudge walking around the corner. Sees a walk around the corner. I'm still on Period's vision. And now Pudge does leave. Come on, Pudge. Come on, Pudge. My time notes are off by a couple seconds here. Alright, he just saw Pudge walk around the corner. You know the hook has to come from here. Somewhere on this side. It's got to come behind here. That's the only way Pudge can hook you. If he wanted to hook you from over here, he'd have to walk there and you'd see him doing it. If he wanted to walk all the way around, you'd see him doing it too. So the main place if he's going to hook you is here. The other thing Pudge could do is just try and backstab like that. But probably he's going to go for a hook through the tree. So what should you do in this situation? One thing is don't stand still. You never want to stand still against Pudge. And the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to stand too close to the tree line. We're going to see Period makes both of these mistakes. So it's been about 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and there you go. Pudge throws the hook. Illuminating Blast is going to hit him. Or Illuminating, excuse me, is going to hit him. And then he's dead. Now, I want to show this play by Porkchop. This is pretty impressive. This is some of the Dotacinema guys, I believe. He's actually going to turn this one around. Illuminate, not shadowed. Sal's up in the corner. He's going to live. Let's go look at Leshrac. Split Earth hits on 2 and gets the double kill. Porkchop is absolutely bailing out Period from an awful laning performance. And no, he wasn't a GG pause. That was just the enemy team pausing because I guess someone disconnected. Okay, that's enough picking up Period. So I hope you guys found that first part of this informative. We're now going to take a look at someone who's a bit more experienced, who's played a lot more Earthshaker, and see what happens when you do some of these things right, and how do you adapt to a different laning situation. So without any further ado, let's jump back into the game. And there we go. And again, this is the big thanks to Period for letting me use his game. A lot of people don't like being picked on. I know personally. I've been getting better just because you get flamed a lot if you're a caster. People tend to have their preferences, but I can be a little sensitive at times. And I know for a lot of people that's true. So I really appreciate the fact that Period shared his replays with us. And hopefully he'll learn something. But either way, he's given us the opportunity to learn from his mistakes. That's a great thing. Okay, so this is Luminous on Earthshaker. And what do you know? He's already in the lane. Let's even back it up a bit more. Player perspective, Luminous. God damn it. The radius. Okay, no. Here we go. Okay, 1 minute and 30 seconds before the creep spawn, and look at Lumi. He's already moving around. He's going to start buying his items. Let's see how long it takes him to actually leave the fountain. It's been 10 seconds. It's been a little bit more. He's already bought the courier for his team, and now he's going to spend the rest of his gold. It's been about 20 seconds here. Might be talking to the team about what heroes to pick. It's been about 30 seconds. Now, this is longer than you want to spend. This is a lot longer than you'll see a pro spend. But in a pub game, people are still discussing hero picks. They're still trying to figure out the lane. So, 30 seconds, that's not too bad. He's got a minute to go before the rune spawns. And already Lumi, 3 clarities picked up. we can see the difference is already starting to crop up. Multiple clarities picked up, courier purchase for the team, and most importantly, he's getting his ass out of the fountain and towards the rune. So if he wanted to place wards, he could do so. If he wants to just check the rune for his team, he's in position to do so. Last game we saw Period, by the time he got to the rune, it had already spawned. It actually got picked up by Darkseer up top.
Battle.
So he's got the right items, he shopped quickly. And we're going to see he's very patient with his fissure usage. That is the next point on the agenda. So we'll fast forward. He's scouting out to see if anyone's trying to circle around and ward his camp. This is a nice little trick to do. If people are going to come ward your camp, sometimes they'll come up the ramp, sometimes they'll come late. But a lot of players like to try and rush in as quickly as possible and get that warded off soon, before you get there. They want to try and beat you there. And the higher level you get, the earlier people are going to be showing up in your jungle. So, nice job by Lumi checking. Checks the rune, doesn't find it. Pings the top rune for his team, but of course nobody's there. So he's just warning them there is a rune there. And what's he going to do now? He's going to head over to block off this Darkseer trying to ward the camp. And this is a great thing to do. Whenever you're in the safe lane, we saw Pyrian was in the off lane, the suicide lane, and it was on the dire side. You really can't pull the creeps. You can try and stack the ancients. If you fissure block here, you can pull, though in competitive games that's illegal. But generally you can't pull on that dire side on the off lane. And even for the radiant, you can pull here, but it's kind of risky and kind of tough to get it off. But if you're on the safe lane, which would be the bottom lane for the radiant, the top lane for the dire, pulling is the name of the game. Try to get that experience advantage, try to get that gold advantage, and more importantly, try to deny it to your opponent. So Lumi is already heading off to block this Darkseer from warding the camp. That's why we see him positioned as he is. And he's going to run into the Darkseer, he spots him out, and now he's in position, couple of auto attacks to start. Furion joins the fight. And this Darkseer, I gotta say, this is pretty ballsy what he does. Sorry, I didn't mean to switch to his camera. Lumi is just waiting to block off his retreat path. Darkseer uses a surge. This is a big mistake by the Darkseer. He should have held on to it and waited to surge until fissure was used, until he was actually getting blocked. But something, I'm actually going to go back because I didn't really talk about it properly. Okay, you're going to see Lumi, couple of auto attacks. Watch how many times he cancels his fissure. Remember, we're talking about being patient with fissures. And no, he didn't use a clarity. That's a spectator bug. He still got his 3. Watch how many times he cancels this fissure before he actually drops one. And we can do it at 0.5. So he cancels it once. He's going to cancel it again momentarily. Cancels it again. And then we're going to see the third time is the charm. And now he drops the fissure. It's a perfect block. Blocking off the ramp. Baited out the surge. Waited until he knew he could get a kill. Then he uses the fissure. This is sort of the opposite situation of what we saw from Period, where he used it too early defensively. This time Lumi is using it at the perfect time offensively. But it's the exact same idea. If you're patient with that fissure, you can punish your opponents for tower diving, you can hold on to that mana if you don't need it, and you find the right block to get a kill. So we're going to see Lumi ends up getting a first blood here for his team with a little bit of help from his friends. Another surge from Darkseer. Nice juke back the other way. It's going to be a long chase, but in will come the rotation from Sniper. And the net is pretty much closed. Lumi has fissure. Doesn't really want to use it. Probably should have. But not a big deal. So he saw Darkseer warding the camps. He knows that they're both warded. Almost immediately, we're going to see the next nice decision by him. Spending his gold wisely. He's going to buy sentry wards to de-ward the full camp. Now, unfortunately, Lumi's going to misplace his sentry wards, but the thought was there. Okay, so in this case, just take stock of the game right now. You see a Templar Assassin mid. You just saw the CM and the DK top. So you know that's 3 heroes accounted for. You know Darkseer's bottom. And by the way, they have an Enchantress. So pretty much everybody knows after a few games, Enchantress will be in the jungle. So you know she's in the jungle, right? And you saw Darkseer warding off your camps. Sure, she could be farming your jungle over here, but Prophet's there. The only camp she could even feasibly be in the Radiant jungle is farming this one, which is very, very dangerous and pretty unlikely to do by yourself. So it's almost certain that Enchantress is in their jungle. So if you're doing the head count, which presumably Lumi is, we're going to see that he is in a few seconds, then he knows that it's a 2-on-1. It's a Sniper and an Earthshaker here, plus there's a Prophet who can join the fight. So really, it's a 3-on-1 in this lane. And when you have that advantage, this is the key. He's identifying that he's going to have an advantage in this lane, and we're going to see he plays it perfectly. He really exploits it. Okay, so we unpause again. And we'll fast forward just a touch here to 138 is the time I've written down. Okay, 130, actually even before that. So you can see a couple of pump fakes with the fissure. This is a nice little trick on Earthshaker. It's not just about finding the right fissure, it's also about trying to bait spells out from your opponent. So let's say there's a Queen of Pain on the other side. if you actually just use your fissure and then cancel it repeatedly, if you force her to blink, until that blink comes off cooldown, she's got to be really careful about coming up to the creep wave. Maybe not in this lane, but definitely in more aggressive dual lanes. So he's already zoning this Darkseer out. This Darkseer can't even get up to the creep wave right now. He's only got Surge, so he has no Ion Shell. Lumi knows this because he saw the Surge used earlier. So he's being very aggressive. He doesn't want to let Darkseer get experience. This zoning out of your opponents is what you ideally want to do as a support. And the remarkable thing about it is Darkseer is Earthshaker is horrible at this. He's a melee hero. He doesn't have any good harassment abilities. All he has is Fissure. But because of the game situation, Lumi knows he can get away with it. He knows he can do it. And he's going to really punish the Darkseer, slow him down. This is something you want to do on every support, especially heroes like Crystal Maiden, Lich, Shadow Demon, heroes that are stronger at harassment. But in certain situations, you can't even do it with someone like Darkseer. So the Fissure canceling is also a form of harassment. It's getting inside your opponent's head. It's being aggressive, and then the positioning to follow it up. So these two little tactics by Lumi are a form of harassment, a form of providing support to the slate. And look at Sniper. He's just happily last hit away. And I'll actually just show you him. Look how happy he is. Happy as a clam. Just getting all the last hits in the world. Already up to 7 and 4. Keeping pace with a TA mid. That's pretty good stuff. Or, is that TA mid? Yeah, it is. Okay. Not important anyway. Alright, so we're going to fast forward to our next time here, which is 3 minutes in.
Not for you.
So you're going to see the same stuff I talked about earlier. Lumi, did he place this? It might have been, I guess it was the Prophet who placed the Sentry Ward. So it wasn't even Lumi's fault. It was the Prophet who misplaced it. And, well, we see it ends up blocking the camp, unfortunately. This Sentry Ward does block this camp. Only lasts for 2 minutes, so they still get a couple minutes of pulling out of that D Ward. But either way, not a big deal at all. Peachy keen. And Lumi, again, just with the harassment. Now Darkseer's Ion Shell. We're going to see you can't really be as aggressive, but we're fast forward ahead to 3 minutes in. Watch what's going to happen. Darkseer is going to make his move. He's gonna make... See him? You see him? Did you guys see that? Just ran into the jungle with vision. Radiant have vision of this. They see Darkseer run to the jungle. And guess what? He's running into your jungle by himself. He's only level 2. You have a Prophet here. You have an Earthshaker Fissure. Block potential. Sniper's level 3. This is a bold move. And so what are they going to do on the Radiant side? They're going to try and punish this. In just a few seconds, we're going to see Lumi paint on the map. Yep, you're going to see him paint. Oh, by the way, guys, Darkseer is in our jungle. The Courier also in a bit of danger. Almost gets caught out there. So maybe that's why he's painting. But either way, notice he's baiting in the Darkseer. Darkseer being a little bit over-aggressive. And the Fissure block. This time there's no hesitation because he has the correct angle. This is one of the best things you can do as Earthshaker. If you find those Fissure blocks, he goes from a hero that's not that good at killing to one of the very best in the game. Darkseer, his avenue of retreat cut off. He's going to end up going down here. So this goes back to the point I was making. We saw in the previous clip, if you guys can refresh your memories, Pyrian saw Pudge go into the shop, and he's a bit slow to head over there and go for the kill. Always want to be on the lookout for those opportunities and seize the moment as soon as you find them. Lumi here sees the opportunity, immediately goes in, drops the Fissure, they get a kill. So this Earthshaker really winning this bottom lane for the team right now. And you're seeing how powerful he can be. No boots, only level 3, no big items, no Blink Dagger. You don't need that to be successful. And this is what separates Earthshaker from a lot of other supports. And you can see Lumi's a little bit mad because his pole camp is blocked, raging at his team. Probably yelling at them in Chinese. Just kidding. Alright, so everything's going well, and there's just one final point I want to make about this game. I don't want to be too repetitive here, and we're going to fast forward all the way to 505.
Let me shake your hand.
You'll notice Lumi is not leaving the lane here, and that's something I want you guys to think about. Sure, his lane is winning. Sniper's probably fine by himself. But Lumi's not going to leave this damn lane. He's just going to continue to harass Darkseer to keep him off the lane. And here we go. If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. So I said last game, if you're in a bad situation, don't be afraid to change your lane to leave that lane. But here we're seeing the opposite. Lumi's in a fantastic situation. He's getting kills. He's keeping the Darkseer back. My time was a little bit early. But if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. Don't leave this lane when you have so many kill opportunities. Here we go. One more Fissure block. Onto the Darkseer. He goes for the body block into the crevice. Unfortunately, doesn't find it. Darkseer will live. And that's not really the point, though. The point is, Lumi knows they're dominating this lane. He knows they're keeping Darkseer down. He knows the Sniper is getting absolute free farm, 25 and 12. He could go mid. He could try and gank TA. That's not likely to happen anyway. So what does he do? He identifies a situation where it's going well, and he keeps on abusing it, basically. And this was the final point I wanted to make for today. It's something we see a lot of players, newer players, will make a big mistake. Oh, my microphone needs to keep pointing at my face. Sorry, my headphones are pretty hot. It's something we'll see with a lot of newer players is they'll win their lane, and then they'll go off, especially if you go solo mid, right? You'll win your lane, you're winning your lane. You go off ganking. A couple of ganks fail, maybe you blame your team, maybe it's their fault. And the next thing you know, you're yelling at your team because, guys, I was winning my lane, and then I try to gank, and, you know, you mess things up, and now, you know, my ganks failed, and that's why mid is back in it. Don't be too eager to walk away from a good situation. So if you are winning your lane, be it bottom, be it mid, be very careful about leaving with that opportunity. You always want to make sure that you're taking full advantage of everything. Okay, so that's my final point. If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. So this was Lumi as well as Pyrian Flax, and I just want to give them a big thanks for volunteering the replays, especially Pyrian, because I was picking on them a little bit. But with all that being said, I think it is time for questions. Indeed it is. So, Q&A time. If you guys have any question about Earthshaker, some of the things I've talked about here, general questions about laning as a support, anything you want to discuss, it's the floor is yours, and we'll probably take 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes for this, since we have some time, as long as the questions are good. Wait, can you guys not? You can't hear me? You didn't hear me earlier? What? Why don't you hear me? I'm looking. Can you hear me now, guys? Is it good? Okay, I'll put it on. It's so hot, and I don't get to show off my amazing hair. Okay. So, question time. Let me see. What do I have? Question by Salith. How do you prevent getting ganked from other lanes when you're winning your lane? First one is wards. Wards are the best way to avoid getting ganked from other lanes when you're winning your lane. That's number one. Number two is minimap awareness. If they're missing, assume the worst. Assume they're coming to gank you. So wards, minimap awareness, and what else is there? I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. I mean, the other thing you could try and do is go spread your success to other lanes. So I'm saying don't abandon a good thing. But if Sniper's just going to keep on killing Darkseer and free farm, it's okay to leave that lane. If you think you can make things happen elsewhere, the best defense is a good offense, that kind of a thing. So, question by Erzal. What sort of heroes would you lane Earthshaker with typically? There's a wide variety. You can put Earthshaker into so many different lanes. If you want to go for a kill lane, we can see cute combos like Phantom Lancer, Earthshaker, Keeper of the Light. At Keeper of the Light with the Chakra Magic, you can just fuel your Fissure spam, and then the Phantom Lance Fissure Illuminate combo can do a lot of damage. So you can put them into kill lanes, and I would throw on top of that any hero that needs a setup stun. Heroes like Leshrac we saw is a pretty good combo. Who else? Lina. Any other sort of stunners, generally ranged heroes you would want to lane them with. But aside from that, I think he's also really undervalued as just a very strong defensive support for squishy, easily gank carries. So heroes like Sniper, I'm showing the in-game, but you can't see it. Heroes like Sniper, heroes like not Phantom Assassin because she's a melee hero, but who else? Drow Ranger, even Morphling could be very good because sure, he's very tanky and survivable, and pretty strong offensively, but if Morphling ever gets into trouble, between Waveform, Morph, and having Fissure, there's no way anybody's killing him. So I would say any sort of carry that wants to farm, generally a ranged hero will be preferable unless it's a tri-lane. And then on top of that, anybody that's very easily ganked, because Earthshaker is very strong defensively. Question by Oh My God Lasers Pew Pew Pew. What's the optimal item build at the start? It depends. Now, if your team needs couriers, if they need wards, generally you don't want to have to buy both, because Earthshaker does need a couple items. You really want to get arcane boots up, or at least some sort of mana regen and boots. So I would say generally, wards or courier are going to be your first priorities. If you don't have to buy them, or if you ran them and you have some extra gold, a bunch of clarities can be good. You can rush a Soul Ring. I would actually say Soul Ring Tranquil Boots is not a bad build to go on really any support hero. And especially if you ran them, you can get the Soul Ring recipe, then complete the Soul Ring at the side shop. And if you start the Ring of Protection, the Soul Ring recipe, you can even complete the Tranquil Boots at the side shop too. So that's one option. As far as, aside from that, a bunch of clarities, maybe a set of tangos. I would even recommend save money for sentry wards as well. If you're in the safe lane, you expect your pull camp to be warded. So generally safe for those support items, but if you're going to buy anything for regen, it should be a lot of clarities, because you shouldn't be right-clicking heroes too much, unless you're saying you're solo mid, carry Earthshaker, or something like that. You generally want to make sure you have a lot of mana regen and a minimal amount of HP. Quagabo HB asks, how do you tell what good camera position is aside from hundreds of games of game sense? Hundreds of games of experience to give you that game sense. Well, Quagabo, it really does come down to experience, but there are some general rules of thumb. One of them is to just practice looking around the map as much as possible. So anytime you see a hero pop up on the minimap, click on the map, quickly check that hero's items, and just get in the habit of doing it. Now, when you first do this, you're going to do it and not even look at the skills, not even look at the items, not even look at anything about that hero. But just get in the habit of clicking every time you see a new hero, click on the minimap, click on that hero. And over time, you'll get used to doing it, and then it becomes natural, and then you can actually process what you're seeing. So that's one thing, is to just constantly be clicking on the minimap whenever a hero pops up, check their items. Aside from that, again, the rule of thumb is when you're in the lane, you generally want to see what's in front of you, because that's where the enemies are going to be. As far as camera position, aside from that, it's if you're walking into the fog, and this is something you'll see a lot from pro players when they stream, you want to make sure your camera is showing where you're going to be walking into, because you already see the area around you. So, like, let's say you're up against a hero like Queen of Pain, and you have a Crystal Maid or something. You want to quickly Frostbite her as soon as you see her. Well, the best way to do that is to have your Frostbite hotkey queued up. You're right-clicking into the fog, moving your hero along, and then as soon as you see that Queen of Pain, bam! You just have to click on her to use that ability, because you've already pressed the hotkey for it. So have your camera position over the area you're moving in towards. That's another rule of thumb. If you're roaming, Vibrating Sheep asks, if you're roaming ES who stays at level 1 for a long time, what's the best way to get to level 6 without costing your team too much? Well, one thing I will say, people really overestimate the importance of Echo Slam on Earthshaker. It is important in the mid to late game, especially a level 2 Echo Slam. The level 1 Echo Slam is nice, but it doesn't really do that much. You'll even see pros sometimes will just stack the hard camp and use Echo Slam to farm more quickly to get those basic items up, the drums, the arcane boots, whatever wards even, whatever it might be. It's not that important of an ability to have, to be honest, and that's really what makes Earthshaker great. He's not a Tidehunter where you have to get to level 6 to really have a big impact. Sure, Anchor Smash and Gush are great spells, but really Tidehunter is about the Ravage. Earthshaker gets his amazing AoE spell at level 1, and it blocks. That block will last forever, even at level 1, so it's not as important to get him leveled up. But if you need to get leveled, it's the same rule of thumb as for any support. Try and find the empty lanes. Whenever your carry is healing, whenever he's out of the lane, get those last hits. So if you roam, one thing you'll see pros do is they'll stop and maybe get a wave or two of experience, then they move on to their next roam. They don't roam, get a kill, instantly leave the lane, and go roaming again. Now, they'll do that sometimes, especially early on, but you want to try to be as efficient as possible. So just roaming all the time, well, you're going to walk by a creep wave. You might as well get a level or two here or there. You'd like to get at least 1 point into your passive Aftershock. Ideally, you'd like to max it. You'd also like to get at least 1 point into Enchant Totem and max Fissure. So don't roam too quickly, I guess. Take some time, see the sights, have a smell, and maybe do a bit of creep pulling. That's the other thing you can do, is creep pull. And if the lane's empty again, farm that. Great questions tonight, guys, by the way. Thanks for these. So Kenny SNG86 asks counter-wording question. How to sentry ward your pull camp without blocking it? Well, that depends on where the ward is. So I'm going to show you guys the in-game camera for a second. Okay, so if this camp is blocked and this camp is also blocked, they probably used a magic bush ward. That ward would be right here. So the place to de-ward, you guys can see my cursor, right? Yeah, you can. Okay. So generally, if you expect the magic bush ward, place the sentry ward back over here would be perfect, because it won't block these camps and you can de-ward it. Now, if only this camp is blocked, if you're a newer player, generally the players will just put the wards right in here. There are other places you can put them. A common one, or sort of like a tricky one, is in these trees. You can even put one down over here, but generally the other good place to put a ward is going to be like somewhere over in this area. Another good sentry ward spot is over around here. Or sorry, I think that's too far. I think it's like right here, because you can de-ward this spot. You can also de-ward wards right in here. So that's just a couple places for the Radiant side. For the Dire, I mean, generally I put my sentry wards like right over here. You can also put them over here if you're expecting maybe a lane ward, and that'll allow you to de-ward the camp, also de-ward in the lane. I'm not a warding expert. There are definitely better guides, but that's just a few common places you could go to. Okay, so I think that does it for the good questions. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, my good friend Bodhi is telling me that that's it for the relevant questions. So guys, if I didn't get to your question today, I do apologize. But generally, I answer questions that are related to the webcam back on. Generally, I answer questions that are related to the material at hand. So if I'm talking about Earthshaker and supports, and you ask me questions about carries and farming or item progression with Phantom Lancer, I'm probably not going to answer your question. The more topical it is, the more likely I am to do so. So anyway, homework for next week, something I would like you guys to try at least once. Just give it a shot one game, guys. Next time you play a game, and you can pick your hero, pick Earthshaker, play him as a support in any lane, but make sure you're laning with someone else and you're playing as a support. And all I want you to focus on are two things. Smart positioning. So if you have a lane where it's like a 3-on-1 or a 2-on-1 like we saw with Luminous, then you want to be aggressive with your positioning. If it's if it's the opposite what we saw with Pyrian, then you want to be defensive. So smart positioning based on the laning situation. That's the one thing, smart positioning. And the second thing is patience with the fissure. Don't just slam down a fissure as soon as you see two heroes. Wait for the fissure blocks. Wait until you really need to use it to keep an ally alive, or until you can get a kill with it. Be patient with your fissures, and look for smart positioning. That's all I want you guys to do in the laning stage, and then do whatever the hell you want. Build a Daedalus, build a Shadow Blade on Earthshaker. By the way, that's a really fun build. If you don't want to play Earthshaker as a support, max your enchant totem and your aftershock. And just get 1 point in fissure and get a bunch of stats. Or you can even just get 1 point aftershock if you want. And then get phase boots, shadow blade, Daedalus, or even minus armor items are great. And then basically you just go for the big enchant totem crits. Use enchant totem, use the shadow blade, and hope that you crit coming out of it, and you can do crazy damage. And divine rapier is pretty nice too. But yeah, that's your homework if you want to try it. I would love to hear. I'd love for all this homework. If you guys find it helpful, if there's things you'd like me to suggest differently, just email me, ld@lddota.com, or better yet, thedotashow@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to adjust in the future. So that does it for today, guys. Tomorrow, Learning with Lumi, twitch.tv/luminousinverse. Same time, different place. That'll be at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific. If you missed today, or you tuned in late, or you want to catch up on VODs from previous episodes, you can find them here, twitch.tv/LDdota. Just click on that videos button below the stream. You can also find them at youtube.com/LDdota for my segments. The Luminouses will be at youtube.com/luminousinverse. And finally, the dotashow.blip.tv, although it hasn't been updated too much recently. The DC site is being overhauled, and we're soon going to have a section just for the Dota show. It'll be a lot easier to find things once that's the case. Finally, I will let you guys know if you want to watch me cast. Beyond the Summits World Tour is happening tomorrow, 17 CST, Orange versus Mouse Sports. And that'll be at twitch.tv/Beyond the Summit. That does it for today, guys. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Thank you to my mods. Big shout out to Bodhi and Holy One and all the other mods who help keep the stream clean and provide me with the questions and just generally make it a more fun experience for y'all. And of course, thanks to people who had the great questions. Thanks to those of you who tuned in. If you enjoyed the show, if you have feedback, you can email it to us, thedotashow@gmail.com. But more importantly, if you did enjoy it, if you found it helpful, please tell your friends about it. Make sure to follow me on Twitch, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, etc. And those links, I'll put them in the chat after we're done here. And that way, show your support, bring more viewers in, and hopefully people can learn something from the show. That does it. And feel free to talk about it on Reddit, Team Liquid, Join Dota, wherever you go that you found the show helpful. Let people know you're finding it helpful, because it does make a difference the more viewers we have. The easier it is for us to do content long term. So that does it for today, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope